Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I once again have a guest. This is Randy Ray, the literate Texan, zooming in from Driftwood Ranch. And the reason for our chat, not that we need much of a reason to chat, we could chat all day long. I have a feeling we could chat all day long without even trying. But we do have a couple of reasons, don't we, this time around?
We're celebrating today. We're celebrating 500 subscribers and 100 videos.
100 videos and 500 subscribers. For
537 now.
Remind me again. Yeah, you passed 500 at a shot. It's not like you you creeped to 502 and then stalled there. You're well on your way to 600. But remind me again when you started BookTube.
You know what? Was it May or June? Or earlier than that? You know what? I
don't remember the exact date, but I know that it wasn't long ago.
It wasn't long ago at all. It feels like I've been doing this forever, though.
Do you actually? What, are you checking your old videos?
5 months ago.
Wow. So of course,
5 months ago.
In light of those milestones, first of all,
that was May.
Golf clap. Congratulations.
Thanks.
First of all, very, very, very nice. But of course, in light of those milestones, I want to ask the predictable question, the most predictable question, which is, what does this mean to you now?
Well, you know, this is a lot of fun for me. And I think I told you, one of my daughters told me the other day, she said, Dad, I'm really glad you found something to do with your time. I have a business partner who worries that I spend too much time on this. But I told him, I said, look, man, I said, I just turn on the camera and start talking. If you see a video that's about 15 minutes long, that represents a 20-minute investment of my time, because I might spend 5 minutes preparing. It depends on the video, though. But I mean, it hasn't been a huge time sink. What's a bigger time sink is watching the videos of all the people that I really like on YouTube, which is a lot now.
Yes, especially if some of them are hyper productive.
Right.
Well, makes it kind of a full-time job just by themselves.
When I started, I thought, okay, here's the road to 14,000 subscribers. I just need to do 4 or 5 videos every day and get to 6,000 videos. That strategy didn't work for me at all. I could do 4 or 5 videos in a day. I could even do that 2 or 3 days in a row. But then after that, I'd take off for 2 weeks.
I think when you're talking about that, when you're talking about numbers, I think above 5,000, you're talking about the algorithm.
Yeah.
Which means an accident. I mean, there are ways that you can be friendly to the algorithm. You can have a pretty thumbnail. You can upload a certain amount of times at a certain amount of length. But past a certain point of doing that, numbers in your title, top 10, things like that.
Right.
But that's only going to get you so far. Other than that, it's going to be snagging the algorithm, which always happens by accident, no matter what people look back and tell you. Once they've snagged the algorithm, some people will look back and say, well, here's the shoestring I started on, as if it was all planned. But it's not. The algorithm will pick you for some reason. Suddenly you'll be on the YouTube homepage.
Right.
And
it doesn't necessarily happen immediately after posting a video, because I did a video called How to Run a Bookstore Without Going Broke. And, it did about like most of my videos, 100, 200 page views. And then suddenly 2 months later, it had something like 1,200 page views. It's the most popular video on my channel, which is really weird because it was not the most enjoyable video that I made. But last weekend, MJ and a few other people on a call were just like, man, we would love to see a whole series of videos about your experiences running a bookstore. So I made another video about the bookstore, and it's done okay. But it's really just not that much fun to talk about compared to other stuff for me. So I don't know that I'm going to run a series of this is what happened when I owned my bookstore. Also, I was drunk all the time in those days. I don't remember a lot of it.
Just in case you listeners are wondering whether or not you need your A game to start a bookstore. ready to
if you have enough money, you can do almost anything you want to, but you won't always have a lot of money after.
That's an odd juxtaposition, because I get the impression that face-to-face in a room, the stories you would tell about running your bookstore would be fascinating, and I don't think you'd find them a chore to tell. What is it about doing videos about it that makes it?
I don't know. I don't know, but I don't know. I really don't. There's some kind of block there. I don't know. I lost a lot of money on that bookstore, and I probably psychologically have that associated with the end of my marriage,
Oh, no.
even though that was a drop in the bucket compared to everything.
Right. But it was going on at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the bookstore wound up, I'd made a lot of money on the internet running a network of websites about gambling, and so I'd sold that business and brought home enough money that I could have lived on it for the rest of my life if we'd maintained our standard of living. But people who get a lot of money, whether it's a big insurance payment or a lottery win or a surprise sale of a business, they tend to blow that money because knowing how to manage $100,000 a year isn't the same as knowing how to manage a couple $1,000,000. And so my new business did not work out very well because, well, part of it was because I was drinking and high on pain pills all the time. Not the bookstore, but my other new business, internet publishing business. And Google has an algorithm too. And I'm generally pretty good at making sure that my content does well with the algorithm. But they launched an update and I lost 90% of my revenue overnight. And I had 15 employees at the time. But rather than lay off 90% of my employees, I thought, well, I'll figure this out. And I kept paying them out of my savings until, whoa, where'd all my savings go? And at the same time, I was running this bookstore that was losing money every month. And before you know it, I had to move to Driftwood Ranch.
Well, I don't actually know. Speaking for book critics everywhere, I have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to money like that.
Right.
Although occasionally, sometimes I will encounter an extra $30.
Right. Well, I know other people who've done that too. I know other people who've, I have a friend who had lost an arm in an accident at work, and he got enough money that would have, maintained him in a modest lifestyle for the rest of his life. But he burned through it in a couple of years, just like I did.
Hmm.
And I remember having a huge ego then, bigger than it is now, if you can believe that. And my wife and I talking about how, oh God, I would never do that. We would laugh about people who had won the lottery and burned through all their money and how we were so much smarter than that. But it turns out I'm not smarter than that at all. Go figure.
So what about BookTube? How are you feeling about BookTube on the occasion of this double milestone?
BookTube is so great, and I think what I enjoy the most is the conversations in the comments.
Really?
I've changed my strategy a little bit. I decided that I was going to upload one video a day, every day, no matter what. And I've done that a few days in a row. I marked my calendar 5, 10, 12, 19, 26 days in a row. So I've uploaded 26 videos in the last 26 days, which I think is a lot better than uploading 3 or 4 videos a day, 2 or 3 days in a row and taking 2 weeks off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
people
taking 2 weeks off is fatal. Taking time off is fatal.
Yeah, yeah. But I love it. I love the community aspect of it. I really do, and I've enjoyed making response videos. There's no trouble coming up with content ideas because people are posting stuff that you can respond to all the time.
All the time. All the time. At least 4 or 5 videos in your feed every day that you can respond to if you want.
Just on your channel. Although on a lot of your videos, my response video would be like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yes. Kind of the theme with my channel.
Right.
I feel the same way. My only hindrance is something that doesn't affect you, which is that a lot of those videos that I see in the course of a day in my feed that I want to respond to, I don't, because I'm not sure that the video maker would appreciate a response, that they wouldn't consider it an attack, not only personally, but also just because I was made aware of this years ago. A booktuber told me, it's not going to matter. Your intent is not going to matter. Sometimes if you're responding to a channel that has, 98 subscribers, that channel is going to look at your subscriber number and think you are just picking on them, even if you're agreeing with them.
Right.
Weird kind of stuff like that I found it's so much more comfortable to just move all of those things off BookTube. You yourself are experiencing this, right? You're experiencing more and more of connecting with people outside of BookTube. that you meet through
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I've got Voxer, and I've got several friends on Voxer now. There are a few people that I email with. And the other thing about coming up with ideas for content, I have commenters asking me for specific content too. I made a video where I talked about your 25 essential fantasy books the other day, which was a response to your list. That was a suggestion from a commenter. He said, why don't you go through those 25 books that Steve mentioned and talk about your experiences with them?
Yeah, I love that.
Which was,
Thought it was
fun to
fascinating. I wish
do.
everybody would do it. I wish everybody would do it, except it would be really depressing for me to watch one video after another, after another, after another, after another, in which people say, "Well, the unicorn, I've never heard of it."
Well,
that just breaks
I
my
was
heart.
surprised. I was surprised that, I was surprised how many of them I'd read, but I was also surprised at how many of them I hadn't read, if that makes any sense.
Well, it does
Paradox.
make sense, yeah. Considering that if you're a denizen of used bookstores, you're kind of seen these things.
Oh yeah.
You just never got around to it. That's all. But I noticed also that you're involved in all sorts of BookTube events.
Oh yeah,
Of
yeah.
yourself, you
So
know?
that gets to be a little bit overwhelming, but it's also fun and it makes me read more. But Shorty September's been a lot of fun for me because I've finished 6 books already this month.
You've been doing regular updates for Shorty September.
Yes,
Those
yeah,
who are
yeah.
watching, that's a BookTube event that concentrates on very short works for the month
Right,
of
right.
September.
Under 200 pages, or in your case, under 100 or 150.
Yeah, I like for Shorty September. I like emphasizing nice short things, really short things that are
I
available.
love being able to sit down and finish a book in one sitting, though. It's really nice. On the other hand, I also like really long novels too.
Yeah, yeah. Most of the books I do in one sitting. But so
Oh yeah.
a long book is really really good. There are two books from mainstream presses in America coming out that I know of, coming out in the rest of 2023, that are not one sitting books for me. They're well too long for me to read in one sitting. Only two. As far as I know, but there might be more. Unfortunately, the books that tend to come out of that length tend to be things I wouldn't read with a gun to my head.
Right.
But and also every once in a while you will find an indie author who just says, to hell with the market, to hell with anything. This is the story I want to tell, and it's really long. So you'll find an indie book that's $1. The book is 1,200 pages long. Can they do it? Can they do it? I don't know. But uh, you say you're doing a lot more reading because of reading events. I think Michael K. Vaughan felt the same way until he overcommitted to the point of very visibly losing his sanity.
Right, right. Yeah.
He's only a shadow of the person he used to be, since he tried to do. He can't even do all his own events, much less everybody else's events.
Well, that was something else I've noticed about BookTube is that, okay, so what I consider a big BookTube channel is 15,000 subscribers, 20,000 subscribers. And I know there are people out there with a lot more than that. But I have noticed too, there is no looking down your nose at people with fewer subscribers than you have. You and Michael Vaughn and Criminali, are to me all giants of BookTube because of your subscriber counts. But you don't treat me like a little kid.
No.
And you don't ignore me or anything like that. Greg, what's Greg's last name? You always have him. Jared, not Greg. Jared Anderson.
Jared,
just as friendly as he can be,
Yeah.
and he's got a massive number of subscribers.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to go far, even in BookTube, to find people who do act that way. But if
Right.
you go with your instincts, you'll know right away who people are and who they aren't who are going to do that.
Well, even Clifford Lee Sargent, who's got 150,000 subscribers, has been completely friendly to me. So I think that's neat,
Oh, it is absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious to know, do you ever go looking for the BookTube newbie tag to find people who are just
sometimes, occasionally on the weekends. I have everybody knows by now that I'm on medication, and I have lots of energy on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but by Saturday and Sunday I'm really tired and sullen. Okay, so I just sit and watch TV, and that's the time that I'll go looking for the BookTube newbie tag. But it's interesting because a lot of times you'll find someone with a BookTube newbie tag. They'll make 3, 4, 5 videos, and then they're done. They're done with BookTube.
Yeah, they're done. You never hear from them.
And it's a big percentage.
Yeah.
But I get that.
Do you?
Well, yeah, because Alcoholics Anonymous is the same way. You meet somebody new, they hang around, they don't drink for a couple of weeks, and then they disappear
Really?
back to the bars.
Oh.
Large percentage of people. So
See, that's one of the reasons I used to regularly sing out BookTube newbie tag people who had uploaded the BookTube newbie tag. I used to regularly sing them out, but then, like you say, they just started serially disappearing.
yeah,
It seemed like I almost want you to what is the not a newbie tag? I almost want to wait for people to do that so that I know you've got some staying power instead of having video after video in my own back catalog where I'm singing the praises of someone who hasn't made more than 2 videos.
I haven't seen the not a newbie tag. I probably qualify for it by now.
Yeah, there are a bunch of, I think there are 2 or 3 different stage newbie tags in case you don't qualify for the newbie tag anymore. I think there's one out there that I ought to do again. That I think I might have made it. I think it might be original of mine, where you reintroduce your channel to people, because we all need to remember new people are finding us all the time.
Oh yeah.
They don't know the private language. They don't know what's an emphasis and what's not. I get that all the time on my own
Yeah.
channel. Where people it'd be better if you periodically introduced yourself. But what have your reactions to BookTube changed over the course of those, all of those videos, all of those subscribers?
So my reactions to BookTube have changed from the perspective of, I didn't used to subscribe to 250 different channels. So I'm less likely to watch a video about something that I'm not interested in. Unless it's someone who's got just this really incredible personality. There is stuff that I just have to skip, or I can't keep up with everyone I want to keep up with. But in terms of that, not really, I'm just, just the same friendly, interested guy I was at the beginning. I'm not nervous about anything anymore.
Who is that?
Oh, hey, Brock. You showing off for the camera back there? That's Brockmeyer. He's my dog.
If you dipped your left shoulder, I'd be able to see his face.
Oh, hey, Brock, say hi.
Oh, hello, baby.
He's so sweet.
Hello,
Brock,
baby.
you been good?
Oh,
he's such a good dog.
How you do? Oh,
he stays right by me all through the house. He follows me from room to room all day, every day.
Oh, that brings back such memories. Smooth-faced dogs. Oh,
yeah. I've got a pug around here too, but he's too old to get up on the furniture now. Even with stairs, he can't get on the furniture anymore.
No.
Oh. Yeah, so I got him stairs a while back, but yeah, Brock, I got 3.5 years ago. Brock was a gift for myself on my 50th birthday. And my birthday is in February. And so I was trying to put some moves on a lady friend. And she loves dogs. And so I told her I wanted to go to the pound and pick out a dog, and asked her would she help me. And she said, I've got a cold. I'm not feeling very well, but maybe tomorrow if you're up for it. So this went on throughout the week until Wednesday. She just wasn't feeling well. I said, I tell you what, take really good care of yourself, and we'll go Friday afternoon. And then afterwards, you come back to my place and I'll cook us both dinner, and while the dog gets to know the new place. And she says, okay, that sounds great. And about 4 hours later, she sends me a text. Randy, Friday is Valentine's Day. And I said, what? I had no idea.
And here the dog still is.
The dog is stuck around, and I'm still friends with the woman.
Wonderful.
So, you know what? If somebody new to us would think that we're sharing an interest in ships. I have one behind me on the wall.
Oh, yes. There we go. Yes.
You have one behind you.
Yes. Yours is the classic Yankee Clipper, right? That gigantic pile of sails.
Well, it's a painting by my grandmother's brother.
He no kidding. You know the artist.
Yeah, it's a family heirloom. I never met him, Uncle Charles. But it's family heirloom. My mother had it until she died, and then my dad had it till he died, and now it's mine.
This was just something that David Murphy and I found at the Goodwill. I knew that I wanted one more wall painting. I actually have a space for another one now, but
right.
I don't get I don't get to most charity shops anymore and don't
Right,
have the wherewithal to carry things back. So it helps to have a car. Very much helps to have a car.
right.
But, so getting back to BookTube, so you have made offline connections through BookTube.
Yes,
So how does that
absolutely.
feel? Did you
You and I
anticipate that?
you and I communicate via Vox. Book Time with Elvis, Mark and I communicate there. Sean Standfast, who I relate to in multiple ways because we both have a lot of the same health issues. Um, but and then Greg and I are Grix. I don't know if you know Grix or not, but Greg and I and Grix and I are both doing buddy reads this month.
Yes, yes, you and Greg and Grix, Randy has had another baptism of fire for BookTube by having an anti-Steve reading event.
I don't
A
think it's an
reading event in which
anti-Steve
Steve is
reading event at
pointedly
all.
not invited. Just because
Right.
Grix hates me. Just because Grix hates me, I wasn't invited. What is the book? Something.
Well, let's see. Grix and I are reading The Name of the Rose.
That's right. The Name of the Rose. Yeah, he mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Greg and I are reading World According to Garp, which I believe was his idea.
Mm.
And Priscilla at the Evening Reader and I did a buddy read of sorts of the Lonesome Dove, although neither of us finished it by the end of June. And are finishing it. I finished it like July 15th. So we never did do a video or anything to wrap up our buddy read, although we both love the book. Priscilla and I actually went to college together. We didn't know each other, even though we were both majoring in English at University of North Texas and Denton at the same time. We graduated the same year and everything.
And then you end up on BookTube.
Yeah, yeah. Friends on BookTube.
and it was through all of these off BookTube connections that you decided to make all of these anti-Steve reading events.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reading The Name of the Rose without me.
We should make a list of authors you don't like Kurt Vonnegut and Chuck Palahniuk, and have a real anti-Steve reading event.
I'd love to be involved in a read along of The Name of the Rose. Wasn't invited, wasn't asked.
Well, you know what? I haven't really gotten very far into it. It was Grix's idea. I'm sure Grix would love it if you joined in.
Oh no. If he wanted me to, he'd have asked me. He must hate me. Same as everybody
He's
else.
probably nervous because you're such a big booktuber and he's such a small booktuber in terms of the subscriber count. Also, he seems to be traveling through the desert.
Yeah. My days of doing that are over with.
You and me both.
Very much.
Yeah, I might make it to Vegas next year, but I'd have to lose some weight first.
I'm going to make it into the woods today with the bean, but that's it. That's it. I think we're getting rain tomorrow.
I was going to ask, did the hurricane hit?
No, the hurricane missed the fainting couch here at Hyde Cottage. It did exactly what the forecaster said it would. It only brushed Massachusetts. So we have a little bit of rain, almost no wind at all. I live in a kind of dell underneath a ridge. So you'd have to work really hard to get wind gusts in this area. You really would.
Right.
I'm in kind of a wind and sound shadow. So unfortunately, it cups and reflects all the sound from the street, but it also blocks all the weather stuff. So we had nothing at all here. It just wiped away the heat and humidity. Just all of that is gone completely. So it's possible now to walk around without panting and sweating, which is really nice.
We got rain here, but the humidity's still high.
Two more big things in the ocean. There are two more big storms, and who knows what they will do in terms of reaching the eastern seacoast. Will Nigel hit the eastern seacoast? Are either one of them going to get really big?
Right.
No idea. And there's also a depression that's forming off the coast of Africa that is forming faster than any of the others this year. And that's one of the ways that you guess that maybe it will be a really strong storm. Although that turned out to be wrong for Hurricane Lee. Hurricane Lee tripled in strength in 12 hours at one point in its journey through the Atlantic, and it still petered out. So
I hesitate to think what winter's going to be like, because you never know. Even though we had one, the hottest summer on record, that doesn't mean we're not going to have the harshest winter ever.
Yeah,
because we might.
Yeah, and you in Texas, you're at the mercy of your weird isolated power grid. That isn't. You don't get to ask anybody around you for help. because then
when we had the rolling blackouts, my life became very routine. I sleep with a CPAP because I have sleep apnea. And so when the power's out, I can't sleep. And so the power would be on for an hour, hour and a half, and I would sleep and plug in my Kindle so it would charge. And then when the power would go back out, I would read books on my Kindle until the power came back on, at which point I would plug it in and take another nap. And that's the way it was for a couple days here.
Yeah, you could get another snap winter storm. That was, the whole country was watching.
I had the Kindle Fire, which was backlit, and I was grateful for it being backlit because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to read most of the time either because it was dark.
The whole country watched your senator go to Cancun.
Boy, it sure got cold here at Driftwood Ranch.
I can imagine. Oh my! But you're saying, again, to get back to BookTube, you're saying that all of these BookTube events, all this BookTube activity, has increased your reading.
Well, it's definitely diversified my reading too, but yes, it has increased my reading. I'm reading about 6 books a month right now on average. Although this month I'm going to surpass that because of Shorty September.
And that is the opposite impression that I get from a lot of booktubers who make videos saying BookTube is actually cutting into my reading time. Right? Well, I think that's why we lost Micah Cummins, because he had to make a choice. It's either I make BookTube videos or I read.
Right.
You're not at that point yet.
You know, I keep getting new ideas for things to read from people too. And, you know, I'm pretty whimsical. I pick up whatever I'm in the mood for at the time. Oh, I wanted to show you this. I don't know if I've shown this on my channel. Shadows of Lust.
Oh my.
I picked this up for Garbaugust and didn't read it. This is I think this is from 1949, but this is like the 1949 edition.
Did you put it in that bag?
By Ralph Carter. No, I bought it at a bookstore. And I bought it at a bookstore that surprisingly, yeah, this is 1949. I bought it at a bookstore that doesn't generally carry rare books. You know, it's the low rent used bookstore here in town. But I picked it up right after finishing My Father the Pornographer, which was a great memoir. And also it was Garbaugust, and I thought, well, this will be great. But anyway, I'm saving it to read for next Garbaugust. If it'll hold up, it looks like it's in pretty good shape.
Now that I think about it, the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut, all of their vintage paperbacks were all in plastic bags. I wonder if maybe they just make the decision, you know, collectible or not, this makes more sense for us to do, so they don't just, so that people looking at these things, simply looking at them, doesn't destroy our stock.
Right. Could be.
I mean,
but yeah, in terms of reading more because of BookTube, yeah, I'm just, you know, people talk about a book that everyone seems to have read, and I'm like, well, damn it, I need to have read that too.
What about,
I find a gap in my knowledge somewhere.
What about the opposite of a book that everyone seems to have read? Do you ever feel the urge to read a book because someone has mentioned that they never hear anyone talking about it? Are you ever pushed to read a book by the way someone talks about a book you've never heard of?
You know, there's some books on your fantasy list that I'd never heard of, especially that I don't know why. I've never heard of this Virconium series or Virconium. For whatever reason, I've just never heard of it. So yeah, I want to pick that up. But also, you know, I made a video the other day about my favorite novel, which is called Everything Matters by Ron Curry Jr., which I never hear anyone talking about Ron Curry Jr. or that particular book. And so I thought, well, here's an opportunity for me to champion this book a little bit.
And do you get responses? I noticed that on your videos, you leave your email. Do you get responses from people saying, hey, this was fascinating, I'd never heard of this thing before?
I do. I'm more likely to get a comment, but yeah, I occasionally get emails too. But that particular video had several people comment that they'd like to read that. The other one that got comments from people who wanted to read it was my review of A Wizard of Earthsea.
Oh, no kidding. Well, that was a really good video.
Thanks.
Man, that was a really good video. I mean, Ursula Le Guin obviously doesn't need your help to sell her books, but it still matters. You know, how someone talks about a book. I've seen, you know, 24 videos about that book that weren't as good.
Well, it was such a great book. And what surprised me was, you know, when I finished the book, I had no idea it was aimed at young adults.
Well, that's the best YA stuff will be like that, right?
Right.
It won't just signal that. It won't be just cafeteria moon eyes over the cute boy. It'll be it'll be the tone, the tenor, you know, certain things in the plot that may or may not happen.
It was great. It was definitely one of the books that I would put on my I loved it list for the year. Well, and then you know how it is. You go down these rabbit holes too. Earlier this year we had BookTube at War, and I started The Killer Angels by Michael Shara. Is it Shara or Shara?
Shara.
Yeah, Michael Shara. And I liked it, but didn't finish it. But then I realized that he had written For Love of the Game, which was one of my favorite movies. I love baseball movies with Kevin Costner in them. There's 3, but I loved the movie, and I was like, well, heck, I'm going to read that. And it was wonderful. It was marvelous.
Yeah, it's one of the only baseball books that has ever even vaguely convinced me that this was a subject worth reading about.
Right.
Well,
I'm a baseball fan. I don't care anything about any other sports except baseball, but I'm not obsessed with baseball either. It's just I enjoy watching a game.
I have one old friend who reads literally nothing else. He'll read baseball memoirs, baseball histories, baseball stats,
Right.
baseball fiction, baseball science fiction. But he won't read if baseball isn't in it, he won't read it. And God bless him. I say to him, "Isn't that incredibly limiting?" And he says, "Well, I'm 85.
Right.
I've earned the right to read only what I want and
read what you want." I've got a baseball book over here called If I Never Get Back. And I guess it's a time travel novel too. But
oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I have a friend in Houston who recommended it to me. He said it's lovely. And so it's on my stack too. But yeah, in terms of BookTube reading events and reading more, I do read more, but I'm also constantly overwhelmed by all the books that I want to read and haven't gotten to yet.
Are you doing anything for Sumerian September?
Yeah, I just posted a video about the Phoenix on the Sword yesterday.
Oh,
which
right.
I loved. Yeah.
That you have in those Del Rey paperbacks, right?
Yeah, and my only complaint about those Del Rey paperbacks is the font is tiny. It's like, we don't need 1.5-inch margins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the weirdest decision for me, is that there's plenty. The font is tiny, but in those paperbacks, there's plenty of room for it to be bigger.
Really bizarre. It's really bizarre. But it makes me want to read the Fafford and Gray Mouser books too, because I don't remember the font being so small in those.
I kick myself when it comes to those books. I had the cheap mass market paperbacks with the Frazetta covers that everybody remembers. But then 20 or 30 years after that, Mike Mignola, the Hellboy artist, did his own 4-volume set of Fritz Leiber with covers and spot illustrations, and I had all of those hardcovers. When you look at old photographs of various rooms of mine, you can see them sitting there on the shelf. Why did I get rid of them? Why? Those aren't made anymore, and I bet that those 4 hardcovers are expensive. I bet they would be expensive. That kills me. That really kills
Fantasy's changed a lot since the 70s and 80s. I really, really loved the fantasy that I read during the 1980s. The Elric books, the Conan books, the Fafford and Gray Mouser books. Although I guess none of those were written in the 70s and 80s, were they?
No, I often wonder, is it that fantasy changed, or is it the marketing of fantasy that changed?
Right.
Because you remember the days, same as I do, those authors that you just listed, the days when you could walk into a bookstore and find those things and just buy them. And
brand new copies.
You weren't out, all of your spending money for the week.
Right.
Whereas now, you get a new fantasy novel, it comes out in a big ornate trade paperback. The trade paperback is $25. And the reason it's $25 is because it's a gigantic print run that you're sending everywhere, even to places that don't want it.
Right.
So, you go into a new bookstore now, let's say you see 3 of those big fat fantasy novels. You can't get all 3. All 3 would be $110. You're not going to do that. Once upon a time, you could go into a drugstore and see those, those old DAW paperbacks of Elric.
Those are so great.
Yeah, but it wasn't just Elric or Fritz Leiber. It was all these other things, all these little fantasy novels that never had more than 1 printing. Oh,
now they're hard to find at used bookstores.
Yes,
around here, people
kept their copies. Imagine if I had every Timescape fantasy mass market paperback now that I once did have.
Next year, sometime I want to revisit the Thieves' World books.
Yeah, you mentioned those in connection with Marion Zimmer Bradley, and it made me realize I haven't revisited them in decades.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to find now too.
It used to be everywhere.
Well,
with
you know,
a very
the
distinctive
last time I was in a Barnes and Noble, and it's admittedly it's been a year or two probably. The last time I was in a Barnes and Noble, I went through the fantasy and science fiction section, and I didn't recognize any of the fantasy except the Lord of the Rings. I mean, yeah,
So
they had Tolkien, but the rest of it is like, who are these people?
yeah,
Although I was thrilled to see the Lies of Locke Lamora on your list of essentials because, wow, that was great.
no way to leave it off,
Oh,
really.
great. I've read that twice and am eager to read it a third time. And I haven't read the other books in the series yet either.
I had a few people saying, emailing me and saying, you know, I saw Locke Namora was on your list, but not, for instance, Joe Abercrombie. And I don't know what I'm not talking here about head count or special effects or magic
Right.
using scenes. I'm talking about the writing, the way it's done. There wasn't any hesitation on my part. But I know what you're saying about the fantasy aisle at Barnes and Noble. A couple of years, or actually before the pandemic, I did that. I actually went into the science fiction fantasy aisle of a Barnes and Noble with the girlfriend of a young friend of mine. She all of 18. And I had that exact experience. I was going down the line saying, well, I don't recognize this. Oh, who's this? It looks like he has a lot of books. And at one point in the course of that aisle, she turned to me and said, well, you know, you can learn about fantasy. It's like, I know about fantasy. I don't know about these people.
Right. Right. Oh,
You
Steve,
can also learn.
I think we're down to a minute and a half.
When you turn that around, all the younger people who are looking at those science fiction and fantasy sections have literally no idea what they're missing.
Right. Oh, yeah. No clue.
But yes, we are down to a minute and a half. I don't want to end in mid-syllable.
Like we've
So,
done the last few times.
yes. So I want to finish up by asking, naturally, this is another natural, it started with a natural question, will end with a natural question. What are your thoughts about the future of Randy on YouTube?
Well, you know, my plan is to keep making videos every day.
So a video a day.
As long as my health holds up, and then occasionally more than a video a day. Sometimes it just seems necessary, but Mark pointed out to me, you know, if you're really, you know, like on Mondays, I've got a lot of nervous energy. And he pointed out to me, you know, if you've got a lot of nervous energy and you make 3 or 4 videos a day, it is okay to schedule them out a little bit.
True. And that makes sense with your energy budget, the way you describe it. Maybe make a couple of videos on the days when you have a lot of energy.
Right.
Your output is nice and even.
Right.
Well, good. Then Randy Ray is here to stay.
Yeah, and I'm not going anywhere. You know, health willing.
Well, good. Well, I wish you all the best with your anti-Steve reading events.
Well, you know, I appreciate you finally getting me on your show.
We'll have to do it again when you hit 600 this week.
Heck yeah, I hope so. Well, probably will hit 600 this week now.
Well, anyway, we're going to wrap this up before we get cut off.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.